Back on Inside Tennessee with former Congressman Jimmy Duncan. Don BOSCH.
Congressman, you and I, while we've had some political differences over the years, it's been sort of surprising how much the dogs and cats have been able to lie down together and how much we've agreed on. And we'll talk about that a little more later in the show, I suspect, but I'd really like to talk about your time as a judge, because every time I run into you, I make it a point to refer to you as judge. And you were a judge that I think I tried maybe one of your last cases too before you ascended to Congress, but you've always shared that that was maybe your favorite job. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that really groomed you for 30 years in Congress.
Well, I love being a judge, and of course, I'll be honest, I've loved every job I ever had at the time that I really thought that I may have been better, more comfortable in any I've ever had, more comfortable as a judge, and I enjoyed that, and I love when you call me judge. And let me apologize to this out there because I and I don't like doing this over Zoom, and for some reason I'm looking straight at my iPad, but it looks like I'm looking at my iPad, and I don't understand that. But anyway, I came into law practice at exactly the best time, I think, and I had a very interesting and a very unusual law practice. My very first case was a first-degree murder case. I think you could look all over the country and not find any young lawyers whose very first case was a first-degree murder case. A black woman had killed her husband, and even that case had a Perry Mason ending. I went into Daniel, and it was a story every day. And then I became my close friendship with Judge Rowe, a Democrat. I became judge because he told Zane one day that he was having heart and stomach trouble and to leave, but he wasn't going to leave if the governor was going to appoint Ron Webster or John Gill as judge, but if I could get it, he would leave early because he liked me well enough to. And I went to see Lamar, and Lamar, I remember, put his foot up in his chair and he said, "Well, this is interesting." And he said he wants some people in the bar association and see what they thought of me. And the next day they called and said the people in the bar association really like you, and Lamar's going to go ahead with the appointment. And then I became a judge. I was a lawyer and a judge for 16 years, about half as a lawyer as a judge before I did my time in Congress. But I have a lot of respect for you, Don, because I know how tough criminal defense work is. It's like beating your head against a block wall a lot of times.
Well, we miss judges like you. You were very, very fair. And like I said, even if we had our political disagreements, we never saw that from you on the bench. You were fair to the prosecution, fair to the defendants, and we'd be better served with more judges like you. So thank you for your service there.
Well, thank you very much. If
I had a question.
Sense, I would have stayed honest, Judge.
Well, we would have kept you.
The judges in Tennessee have a much better retirement than the members of Congress, much to people's surprise about that. But anyway.
Well, I'd like to ask you about one of the votes you took in Congress that was controversial at the time, and it was the vote against the Iraq War. And I know you at the time felt like it was the right vote. I'm guessing you still feel like it was the right vote. But talk about that a little bit. And did that hurt you politically with the president and with the leadership in the House?
Well, it was certainly the most unpopular vote that I'd ever cast at the time that I did it, because the night before I did it, one of the television stations in Knoxville, maybe this station, ran a poll, and it showed 74% of the people in East Tennessee were in favor of the war, and 9% were against, and 17% were undecided. All the numbers. So for 3 or 4 years, it was clearly the most unpopular thing I'd ever done. But much to my amazement, slowly, it became one of the most popular I ever cast. And I know about a year after I'd done that, I was supposed to speak at a Baptist church in North City, and the minister called me on the Monday before and real apologetically told me that his biggest contributor said he would pull out of the church if I came, and so I said, "Oh, I understand," and so I didn't go. But I will tell you, I became a very anti-war Republican. And was on Afghanistan for years. Many years ago, I said we should have gotten out of Afghanistan also. But if you think back, if you would look back at it, the most anti-war president we ever had was Dwight Eisenhower. And if you don't believe that, you should read in 1953 his speech to the American Association of Editors, and it's probably the most anti-war speech that was ever given by a president. It's sometimes referred to as the Cross of Iron speech, but I think that my views were very similar to his. And I had one columnist wrote about me and said my views were more in line with Main Street than Wall Street, and I think that was a pretty good description too.
More questions to the Congressman. John North has a few after reading your new book. We're back with more right after this.